Well, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to the Anne Bradstreet Poetry Contest Award Celebration here on North Andover Common. It's nice to see you here today. My name is Mark Bohr. I'm the Town Poet Laureate. And this is the third year that we've had the Anne Bradstreet Poetry Contest. And finally, as I was saying before, we did something that was in the name of the contest from the very beginning. And this year we have Anne Bradstreet as the inspiration. Let Anne be your muse was the theme. And the people and kids of North Andover, everyone who lives, works, or goes to school in North Andover was welcome to submit a poem. And around 80 kids and adults submitted their poems. The judges carefully read them and selected the winners and finalists that you're going to hear today. Now, just to let you know, some of the kids had conflicts today. There are a couple of high school kids who were taking SATs, for example, and they were not able to be here. So in the cases where the kids or adults are not able to be here, we wanted to make sure that their poems were performed. And so we have other members of the Poet Laureate Committee who are going to read their poems. So all the poems will get read today. And we do things in basically age reverse order. So the first group will be high school, and then middle school, grades 3 to 5, and then grades 1 and 2, as you see in the program. And we intersperse the adults throughout. We think it creates a good variety. And so I'd like to get started. And there are some words that I wrote as a poem to introduce things today. You walked the same land. Anne Bradstreet is here. You walked the same land, this land that we stand on. You walked here before us. With your pen, you have strewn flowers of spring, fall, and winter. Soft petals of pink and rose, gold and auburn. Petals of hard ice and stone gray sky. Petals of faith, petals of doubt. You have strewn for us contemplations, stories of kings, the ages of man. Flowers that tell the story of your love for a man. You have tended gardens in your heart and your mind. The petals have fallen from lives gone too soon. All are told in your eyes. You painted the leaves of summer oaks, standing bright with dark greens that stay so. They remain as they were, even though the fullness of time has passed. They remain. You walked the same land where we stand today. Your earthly body rests near Academy and Court, or in Boston, in the crypt of your father, gone yet nigh in our minds. You rest now. You would tell us that your earthly body did not matter. The one in heaven is your right concern. The one of spirit and the word still walks among us. In your words, you wrote your mind. We greet you. In the quiet words on your pages, we wait for you to walk by. We pick up your leather-bound journal from the nightstand just where you placed it on your last earthly day. Written in your hand, your thoughts in pen and ink, you speak to us from 1650 as if from the other room. I see you now, up there on the other side of the common. We can sit on the same stone bench as you. Your hand and pen paint the scene. We see what you see. Sitting on the stone bench with you, we are together in time, on the common land of the same town where your petals are scattered with love. Anne is here. Anne walks among us today. Thank you. I would now like to invite Jason O'Toole, member of the North Andover Poet Laureate Committee, to read some words of Anne Bradstreet.
Hi, I'm Jason O'Toole. Can we all hear me? Yeah, okay. This is going to be a reading from Contemplations by Anne Bradstreet. And just to make it a little more understandable to the people from the 21st century, we have an appearance of Phoebus from the Greek pantheon, being the personification of the sun, who is with us today. And I'm going to pronounce a couple words differently, so I thought I would explain why, because Anne Bradstreet was real big on rhymes. Kind of a old school rapper. That's a real bad dad joke, I'm sorry. But I'm going to pronounce the word deity as deity, which you will hear, so it rhymes in the poem, and then also vegetive rather than vegetative, which I believe are more how they were said in those times. So now we're ready to get into the 1600s, and I'm going to start right now. Contemplations. Sorry for the dad joke, Anne. Some time now passed in the autumnal tide, when Phoebus wanted but 1 hour to bed. The trees, all richly clad yet void of pride, were gilded o'er by his rich golden head. Their leaves and fruit seemed painted, but was true, of green, of red, of yellow, mixed hue. Rapt were my senses at this delectable view. I wist not what to wish, yet sure, thought I, if so much excellence abide below, how excellent is he that dwells on high, whose power and beauty by his works we know. Sure he is goodness, wisdom, glory, light, that hath this underworld so richly dight. More heaven than earth was here, no winter and no night. Then on a stately oak I cast mine eye, whose roughing top the clouds seemed to aspire. How long since thou wast in thine infancy, thy strength and stature more thy years admire? Hath 100 winters passed since thou wast born, or 1,000 since thou breakest thy shell of horn? If so, all these as naught eternity doth scorn. Then higher on the glistening sun I gazed, whose beams was shaded by the leafy tree. The more I looked, the more I grew amazed, and softly said, what glory's like to thee? Soul of this world, this universe's eye, no wonder some made thee a deity. Had I not better known, alas, the same had I. Thou as a bridegroom from thy chamber rushes, and as a strong man joys to run a race, the morn doth usher thee with smiles and blushes. The earth reflects her glances in thy face. Birds, insects, animals with vegetative. Thy heat from death and dullness doth revive, and in the darksome womb of fruitful nature dive. Thy swift annual and diurnal course, thy daily straight and yearly oblique path, thy pleasing fervor and thy scorching force, all mortals here the feeling knowledge hath. Thy presence makes it day, thy absence night, quaternal seasons caused by thy might. Hail, creature, full of sweetness, beauty, and delight. Art thou so full of glory that no eye hath strength thy shining rays once to behold, and is thy splendid throne erect so high as to approach it can no earthly mold? How full of glory then must thy Creator be, who gave this bright light luster unto thee, admired, adored, forever be that majesty. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Now I'd like to invite Dan Spears. He's the Poet Laureate of Haverhill and also a member of the North Andover Poet Laureate Committee. He has a few words about poetry.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a beautiful day, isn't it? You know, for thousands and thousands of years, long before we had newspapers and flyers, books, libraries, and certainly long before we had digital files ways of recalling and remembering things, we had one certain way, and that was through poetry. Poetry has a rhythm and a rhyme that made it easy for the people who recited the poetry to learn it, to memorize it, and to speak to other people in the towns and villages and cities in which they traveled. Why poetry? Poetry was the heart and the soul of the people and the things they saw, the beauty, the tragedy, everything we know. Think about when you first heard about poetry. Babies, nursery rhymes. And when you're a toddler, nursery rhymes, Old MacDonald had a farm. You grow older, you think of love, you think of hate, you think of events in your life. That's what poetry means to you. Poetry tells you the story of yourself. Poetry sees a painting, a portrait, a statue, artistic words and motifs. These through time endure, each through our eyes a leitmotif, visual and visceral, pleasing to our pursuit of beauty or reality, our aesthetics pure. Poetry shows impressions similarly astute, musings of love, hate, laughter, and tears, reveling in the mystified images of us. A painting, a portrait, a statue, they show our outer selves. A poem reveals what's inside. Poetry sings of the essence of life, the music eternal. Poetry. Listen to the music of the universe singing, the poetry of time singing, the rhythmic hum of cosmic song, a song of us, written in poetry. I'm looking around and I see poets here. Yes, there be poets here. I want you to think about this. Someday, sometime, in a time you do not know, in a place you may never go or ever have been, there will be someone whom you do not know and may never know, whose name you may not be able to pronounce, who speaks in a language that you don't speak. Somewhere there will be a poet who will write a poem that will change the destiny of man. Someday a poet will write a poem, as has been said. Someday someone will write a poem that will change the world. It could be you. So what now, all you poets? What now?
Thank you, Dan. He's an excellent poet, by the way. All right. We are ready for the first of our award winners. And we start with the winner of the adult category. He was not only chosen as winner, he was also given a special award called the Metaphorical Imagination Award because of the metaphors in the poem. I'd like to call up Graham Jackson to read his poem to Bradstreet, Her Book's Reply. Graham Jackson.
Congratulations, Graham.
All right, can y'all hear me all right? Good? A little bit louder? Yeah, a little. Try to be as close as I can, yeah. Testing, testing. Testing, testing. Testing, testing. All right, that's good. Hi, everybody. I am Graham Jackson, and I wrote this poem in response to an existing poem by Anne Bradstreet that I was really struck by, in which she is super critical of her own writing and sees it as an unworthy brainchild. And so I wanted to imagine what her book's reply would be. So this is how it goes. You, bright-eyed founder of a distant home, from whence I sprung, full-formed and full of joy. You sought to keep me close, and thus entomb these rags in lonely darkness sands employ, to force a blindness on a blinding light, that helpless burns, a muse within your heart. I once was freed by friends who saw your plight, who knew the world could learn from thine high art. And so they brought me forth into the day, over the hill and by the common green. In print, I laughed and sang and danced away, while you made chase to wash your errors clean. For all your sight, you did not see I fell within your greatest critic's hands, your own. Though scrub you may, I have a tale to tell of steady hearts that beat for this new town, of families that shaped these truthful songs, and faith that fanned your worthy words to flame. And so I'll stand to spite my many wrongs, although I'm ill-formed in your sight the same. But don't lose hope. Perhaps in time you'll see that there's no shame in trying to impress the crowds that clamor for your legacy. For you're my gifted maker, nonetheless. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, great.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, I'd like to call the high school students up. So if you could all come up over here by the corner of the bandstand. And the first of the high school students is the winner, Lily Bouillet, grade 11, North Andover High School, and she has her poem A++ to read. Lily.
My inspiration for this poem was Anne's struggle with her religion. She had a hard time resisting the temptations of the material world in exchange for the promise of heaven. Anne was far from a perfect Puritan. She had to grapple with the fact throughout her life and her poetry. I find myself also struggling to come to terms with my imperfections. I often stress about my grades in college, trying to be as perfect as I can. My poem was inspired by both Anne and my coming to terms with being human. I hope you enjoy my reading of my poem, a lighthearted attempt to highlight the difficulties of starting to write and making mistakes. I struggle to find my words, too focused on making a rhyme. If I came across a mountain, would I even start to climb? I find that my words don't flow. There is no stream of thought. I think of the word I want, but then realize I forgot. Again, I was too focused on rhyming and my flow. No matter how hard I seem to try, my writing just doesn't go. A blank page is like quicksand. I try to stand but fall. The ground below swallows me. I feel so stupid and small. I don't want to try if my work's not perfect, dragging my feet to the starting line. When I'm finally forced to run, my words don't sound like mine. I crumple up my paper, screaming in frustration. I give up, I yell, begging for placation. I simply want to try my best. I know I can always go back, but just the thought of starting to write gives me a heart attack. Why can't I just be amazing? A sparkling, shining star. When I think of my finished poem, it seems so terribly far. Slowly I start to write again, too determined to give up. I think of an idea, I cross my fingers for some luck. Up and luck don't quite rhyme, but now I cannot stop. My mind, it starts to fill, my head is about to pop. One word on the paper, then two, then three, then four. The words begin to come easily, my thoughts begin to pour. My crumpled blank paper no longer looks so white. Finally, I found my rhythm, I feel surrounded by light. Even though my words aren't perfect, I stumble as I speak. I know that I will climb my mountain. I will reach the peak. Thank you.
Congratulations. I think one of the things the judges liked about that poem is that it so well captures the writing of poetry itself. That's just really wonderful. All right, I'd like to call up for the finalist, one of the finalists, Daniel Agosto, grade 12, North Andover High School.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes. So the inspiration for my poem is not only Anne Bradstreet, but what we've been discussing in my bioethics class recently, and the issue of the old religion and the new religion, which is what we call science. Faith in what you cannot see. Faith is a substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen, a belief that goes beyond what we know. Trust in something yet to be seen is a guiding light that shines within, a compass that points the way, a rock on which we stand when all else fails, a hope that never fades away. Faith is a song that lifts us up when we're feeling down and low, a friend that sticks with us through thick and thin and never lets us go. It is the confidence that we can overcome, the strength to carry on, the knowledge that we are never alone, and the love that makes us strong. Faith is the hope that springs eternal, the promise that we'll be okay, and the courage to face each new day with grace, and the power to light up the way. So let us hold on to faith each day, and let it be our guiding light. For with faith we can conquer all, and find our way to the other side.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I would like to invite one of the members of the Poet Laureate Committee to come up. This is Signa Spencer, and she's going to read poems by Emma Dara, Lana Gibbs, and Lauren Irwin. Emma Dara is a student in 10th grade at North Andover High School. Lana Gibbs is a student at Brooks School. And Lauren Irwin is an 11th grader at North Andover High School. So this is Signa Spencer.
Hello. So this is the poem by Emma Dara entitled Gray. Okay? And she says she was inspired by Anne Bradstreet's The Four Ages of Man. She says she was intrigued by the themes present, particularly the theme of life and its inevitability. She felt that she could relate to the youth portion of the poem and was surprised to see that the struggles of being young in Anne's time have stayed consistent as the years have gone on, and that she had much to say about the hardships of being a teenager that a lot of adults might not quite understand or remember. Gray. In the wee hours of the morn, a boy and man sit forlorn, waiting. The boy with a weight on his back, the man with spirits black. And as the weary-eyed one watches for the sun, the hardened man mutters, "Oh, youth is wasted on the young." The boy has twice heard this, but never understood its purpose. He swallows his spite and bites his tongue. But again the man grumbles, "Youth is wasted on the young." Never a cursed care, unimpassioned and endlessly unaware. Have you no idea what you squander? Alas, it is useless to ponder. Rejuvenated thoughts plague the teen. But what does that mean? On what, old man, are you keen? Surely not the mind, crude, malleable, and meager, prey to persuasion, hopelessly eager. And the heart? Nonsense. What good is a heart too consumed by lies to recognize what is real and right before its eyes? A close friend, yet one we cannot trust. A fierce enemy? Yet endure it we must. Still, the man speaks with little care, as if the indignant boy were not even there. The sun has not yet risen. Darkness quells all anger. So the tired boy sighs and asks the stranger, "What is it then that he aches for?" "Opportunity." "Oh, but it slips away so easily, turns to regret too swiftly, feels like a persistent pebble poking through the underside of your worn-through shoe." Time. There's no such thing beyond an alarm clock's incessant ring. One moment is spent dreaming and pining, the next spent slumped neath fluorescent lighting. And outside the warm sun shines down, growing tired of its waiting around. Beauty. Of course, though the body is a book, only the prettiest worthy of a look, and when finished, put back in its place, else left creased and half-read on a dusty bookcase. When the boy is all done, he feels the battle is won. His anticipation comes to an end as the doctor strolls in with clipboard and pen. Dully, the boy is asked what disturbs him so. It is clear the doctor would like him to go. "A nuisance, the smallest silver hair just here," the boy says as he points above his ear. Now the sun starts to rise, slow and sure, and the man still waits for his turn. One final time the boy casts him a look and says with weary eyes, "Youth is not wasted on the young. It is dangled before us like a worm on a hook, and then cast out to sea, sunk and sunk. It is thrust at us and just as swiftly taken away, leaving us frustrated and tired and shaken and gray." The next poem is called "The Fall" by Lana Gibbs. She did not mention what she was inspired by, but it may have been the same poem. The Fall. People fall all around me. I did not understand at first, you see. It appears that I, too, had to fall for me to comprehend it all. There are no words to describe the feeling. At first, I did not understand what the world was dealing. My cards were suddenly in someone else's hands, spread across the table like contraband. Once the fall began, I could not escape the pull. After a 17-year hole, I finally felt my heart swell full. The pounding rush drummed in my body. I kept looking around to see if anyone saw me. I wonder who else has experienced this fall, if they too knew how to comprehend it all. I did not understand at first, you see. People fall all around me. And the final poem I'm reading is by Lauren Irwin. It's called "Deathbed Desires," and her inspiration was Anne Bradstreet's poem "To My Dear and Loving Husband," in which she wishes the best for her husband and children after her death. Deathbed Desires. As children, it is assumed tomorrow is a guaranteed comfort. We are blind to the family a few miles over, gathered to celebrate a life, gathered to hate a death, gathered in remembrance, and gathering in hurt. But when we lay on that deathbed, are we still assured of tomorrow with the finality of today? Imagine that family now, long healed, carrying a legacy. If we give our wishes to the world, and to those we treasure as family, then tomorrow is still guaranteed, and to our influence, death is no enemy.
Thank you, Signa. I would like to now call up Elise Henry. She's in grade 11 at North Andover High School. And she's going to read her poem, Leak.
Hello, I'm Elise. My poem is called Leak, as Mark said, and it is inspired by the poem in memory of my dear grandchild, Elizabeth Bradstreet, who deceased August 1665, being a year and a half old. It's also inspired by being thankful for how I grew up as a child. So yeah. I leak the words of morning, but a sparrow I am not. I'd rather be considered a frog, or even perhaps a moth. This my path to knowing, clothed my mind as not? No, I've never heard that word. What superficial talk. I find solace in the trees, they speak a different language. It's a language only we can hear, a beautiful advantage. I race the running water, and I challenge her with my legs. I'm the queen of the mountains, but the mountains know I jest. These sticks and stones, they raised me. I'm an apple on a tree. A red, red, red leaf fantasy, daughter of wonder is me. I seep into my memory the scent of rain, fog, and trees. Summer is a blink away, but oh, it feels like yesterday. I leak the words of wisdom the moss hath given to me, and upon every rock or toad lays that piece of me. If you want to rule the kingdom, you must first understand. The kingdom does not hold a key, not one known to man. So silly you would have that thought, a kingdom with a king? The brook would babble over him, the bee would simply sting. I gift my soul the sun, she needs it for her health. I run until my lungs are lilies, my brain has turned to slugs. Yet I'm content with all of it, the crass simplicity. But I think there's a leak in the faucet, and I've got to be home by 3. Thank you.
And now I think you understand why that won the Evocative Imagery Award. So I'm going to read a poem by this is the last of the high school group, and this is the Metaphorical Imagination Award winner, and it was written by Jasmine Shee, and she's a high school student at Brooks School. Strings. Art thou a puppet born a beating heart? String and cloth and buttons may suffice, but ink and pen and pages do define. To wish hands be pricked of pen, not pin. A simple dream, so charming yet a trance. Perhaps thou art no longer here, and I left alone in despair. Bound by endless ties of rambling pots and pans and arching back bent by the ages of a silent voice, to end, she says, and picks herself back up again together. Thank you. All right. I would like to invite the next adult category winner, Ron Searles, to come up and read his poem.
Good afternoon. What a beautiful day. Better? Yeah. So I was on Facebook and I discovered the North Andover Poets Corner. And that was a couple of months ago. And so I wanted to go to a Zoom meeting that Mark was setting up. And unfortunately didn't read the instructions right on the page. So I didn't actually get to the Zoom meeting, but then Mark mentioned, oh, we're having a poetry contest about Anne Bradstreet. And I said, oh, who is Anne Bradstreet? Only to myself. So I thought to myself, well, sure, I'm a poet. Maybe I could write a poem, because he asked me if I would write one. And so then I bought her, a book, Kindle of her works, and read through it. And then I was struck by one particular stanza in Contemplations. I cut my poetic teeth, learning about Wordsworth and Coleridge and Keats. And I found this one stanza that just reminded me of something that wouldn't, she was like 150 years ahead of her time. So anyway, this is my poem about that, called On First Hearing of Anne Bradstreet. I have lived here now for 27 years and have been in love with poetry all along. Ashamed, I must now admit, that I did not learn about you until just 2 months past. My regrets then bit my toes until I kicked them down your street. I have been to Emily's Amherst house, to Melville's Pittsfield Place, to Thoreau's Concord Pond. But where is your home? I cannot find it. I live in your town. You walk the lanes and swells that I now cross. You sat under shade by the same rivers and lake. But the oaks and elms have come and gone. Only chickadees fret now over an unmarked grave. I imagine you in some dim room, smelling a bayberry, composing by candlelight, with gargoyle dreams weaving dark shadow dances about you. Your poems are about your life. You gaze intently on the people in your family, their journeys, travails, and deaths. You look up to heaven's embrace, all in a constrained and Puritan style. But then I got to your Contemplations, stanza 26, where you escaped. While musing thus, with contemplation fed and thousand fancies buzzing in my brain, the sweet-tongued Philomel perched o'er my head and chanted forth a most melodious strain, which wrapped me so with wonder and delight, I judged my hearing better than my sight, and wished me wings with her a while to take my flight. From you to Keats, a romantic lightning flash. But where are the nightingales? We have none here. Yet yours was heard, your Philomel. Was it a memory from England? Or some mockingbird composing a complex round? Or was it rocketing metaphor for all that lifts us into abstract space, where music, and yes, poetry, is the rapture of temporary grace that thorns us with joy and bakes the bread of melancholy, makes us forget the murderous bullies who now among us slither and crawl. And that one stanza makes me think that you, Anne, are the nightingale that I now hear, perched on the tree of poetry. That is your home. And for you I leave this poem, these words, in lieu of lilies, on your hidden bier. Thank you. Thank you.
So many of these poems reveal the writing of the poem, and that if you've ever had an inspiration and you think, oh, I'm not a poet, I'm not a writer, you should get over that shyness at writing and start putting words on a page. Just start writing. That's what they say. If you want to write a poem, start writing. Just like Lily did, that's what Ron did. And once you start writing, it can be like a river. It just starts to flow. And from there, you get even more ideas. So don't be afraid to be inspired. That's my plug for poetry. I would like to invite the middle school winners to please come up now. So if you can come up to the stage, we're ready for middle school. And the first of those is to read, so you guys can come on up. The first is the winner. Ineshi Jayasakara will be reading her poem. She's in grade 6 at North Andover Middle School.
My poem was inspired by Upon a Fit of Sickness by Bradstreet, written in 1632. Two lines that specifically stood out to me from this poem were, "The race is run, the field is won, the victory is mine I see," which shows the end of her sickness and her victory. A painting of a tunnel. Entering a tunnel of uncertainty and change, with a long, winding path leading into the unknown. Not knowing where the end is, the darkness stretching out before us, like a void with no end. Problems and drawbacks, like stalagmites guarding the exit of a tunnel, menacing as they loom over us, their shadows covering us in complete darkness. Our fears emanating from every corner. Though our fears, challenges, and our mistakes, light floods from the exit, for the end of the tunnel is near. Victory will arise, the tunnel will pass. Though the pandemic has changed us from where we once were, as we turn around to see the tunnel behind us, our hardships, our struggles, paints a picture of what we have braved. Thank you.
It is so nice to hear poems that see difficulty and yet see a path through the tunnel to better times. And that's another one of the ones that we've heard today that look towards the positive. I would now like to introduce, in the middle school finalist category, Tarun Nair. He's in grade 6 at North Andover Middle School.
Hi, I'm Tarun, and Anne inspired me by writing a poem about nature. She wrote many poems and they were about nature. I'm also a nature lover, and she used words such as like die and ye, so it only seemed appropriate to include such words in my poem. I felt that writing a poem about spring was necessary to emphasize Anne's spirit and love toward nature. I wanted to write such a poem, so it seemed that Anne herself had written the poem. Enjoy. Spring's Embrace, written by Turner. Ye ice and snow washed away, spring takes place. Thy sun follows with these warm embrace. Thy bird's song fills thee meadows. Thy tune thee sings, who ye knows. Thy flowers blossom with strife. Thy forest bloom with its wildlife. Thy wonders it shall bring, for it is thy nature of spring. Thank you.
Thanks, Tarun. I would like to call the grade 3 to 5 winners and finalists to come up and get ready. I have an adult poem to read, but if you can come up here by the corner of the stage, we can be ready to go. So the next poem in the adult category was a finalist and also was awarded the Evocative Imagery Award. It's by Christine O'Connor, and Christine unfortunately couldn't be here today, but it's worth noting that she is North Andover's town council. So we not only have a lawyer who works for the town, we have a lawyer who can write poetry. So if the town needs her to make their case, she probably has a way with words. Here we go. So the title of this poem is A Modern Jeremiah for Mistress Bradstreet. And what's very nice is that Christine tells us what a Jeremiah is. And I'm actually not sure I'm pronouncing her right. Jeremiah? I think that's right. Okay. A Jeremiah is a long, mournful complaint or lamentation. It is also an American Puritan rhetorical device of indignation, expressing deep dissatisfaction and urgently challenging the nation to reform. It derives from the biblical prophet Jeremiah, who lamented the moral state of Judah. Here we are. A Modern Jeremiah for Mistress Bradstreet, written by Christine O'Connor. There are rows of graves, gray, straight, hard slate stones, centuries old. They are weathered, lichen-covered, in a slow-growing green. Change does not come quickly here. There are deep cuts marking the bones beneath the stones of Osgood, Parker, Barker. Angels and hourglasses mark the resting place of Fry and Faulkner, Poor and Lovejoy. But her name is not among them. No winged skull, nor memento mori to mark the spot where once a poet lived. Nothing to remember that day in September, a plain wooden coffin held her remains. Change has not come quickly here. These graves look out to where once there was a meeting house. Its impassioned lamentations for a more perfect place still run through these woods. Because while change does not come quickly, hope lingers and clings like lichen to old stones. Here, I release my own Jeremiah, a barbaric yelp shaped over these many centuries. I release my words into these fallen leaves, into this hallowed ground. They trip along the same pine-needled path that many others have followed. They ring in time with church bells, North Parish, South Parish, and repeat, repeat, repeat. The same persistent note. They rise above twin birch trees, passing ravens, and piercing the purity of clouds. This plea, this prayer rains down. I want to find Anne Bradstreet's grave. I want this new world. I want this new world to finally be new. I want us to collectively reach that city upon a hill, to fulfill that sacred covenant to each other that all are created equal. I want change. In the day's horizontal light, as faint as a fallen feather, is the whispered voice of another. Among March's snowdrops and crocuses, a muse springs up from her unmarked, unknown grave, somewhere, everywhere. She answers my call, simply, poetically, and in truth she says, me too. Thank you. All right, we are ready for grades 3 to 5. Unfortunately, our winner, Robert Michael Coling, had a conflict, but Jason is going to do his poem.
All right, Robert, I'm sorry you couldn't be here, but you're going to be on TV. Your words are going to be on TV. I'm waving at you. So you'll be on cable access here in North Andover. And what's that? Oh, and on YouTube. You're going to be a YouTuber, Robert. Your words are. This is cool because this is a fourth grader, and that's special to me because when I was in fourth grade, I had a teacher at the Albany Academy for Boys, and that's in Albany, New York. And that teacher was Ms. Everett from England, and she had us memorize entire poems in fourth grade, which some of the kids didn't like, but I loved it. So that's where I was reading Sandburg and Longfellow, you name it. And from there, I was like looking for more. We didn't have kids. We didn't have we didn't have YouTube back then. And I had a little black and white TV set that was basically for watching moon landings and PBS. That's about all I could watch. So I found these things called books around the house. My parents had E.E. Cummings and they had T.S. Eliot. and some of their friends were beatniks, and they had William Burroughs and Ginsberg, and then, then I got to meet some of these guys because I was in New York and they were around, so I met Pete Seeger, the folk singer, Allen Ginsberg a bunch of times, and anyway, I started reading poems, and the best way if you want to write poems is you have to read, and it's just like if you want to be say a modern art abstract expressionist painter, it's best to learn figure drawing first. So I was like cutting my teeth on trying to write sonnets and rhyming poems, and I kind of went from there. But you should be able to do it all, just like Picasso. He could and Salvador Dali, if you've ever seen like their realistic work, totally on point. So kids, I'm talking to you. This is what you do. If you want to be a writer, you got to read. And so this kid is definitely a writer, definitely a poet. We're going to get right into it with no further ado. And his poem takes its inspiration from, what's that poem? It's the prologue to Anne's poem, The 10th Muse Recently Sprung Up in North America. And he builds his poem around her line, To Sing of Wars, of Captains and of Kings. And Robert's poem is titled War. To sing of wars of captains and of kings, so rich, so greedy, all those things. Once you want, you start to fight for freedom or for higher might. To sing of wars of captains and of kings, it's wealth or death the poor one sings. To pretend the world's a piece of trash, to sacrifice then add to your stash. To sing of wars of captains and of kings, one step left to ending things. Throw the cannons, let them fall. Take the gold, take it all. Thank you. And thank you, Robert. You got a career ahead of you. It's the auspicious start for an illustrious career for a young North Andover poet. We bring up next.
Yeah.
We got some.
Yeah. You guys want to come up? Actually, Sophia, you want to come up first? So I'd like to introduce Sophia Doucette. She is a 5th grader at Sargent School. Nice and loud.
America's first poet, Shall She Be, was taught by herself, not by thee. She was full of smarts and wits, and yes, she would never quit. Never would she stop, halfway done. No, that wouldn't be as fun. When her house burned down, she was sad, but she got back up and rose to her feet. Her name's Anne Dudley Bradstreet, you see. She was America's first poet in history. Thank you.
Congratulations. And now I'd like to call up Charles Bohenick. He's in grade 3 at Sargent School.
Thank you.
The title of my poem is called Anne Bradstreet, and it is a cinquain about Anne Bradstreet, who, as we probably all know from the last poem, was one of the first American poets in history. Now I will read my poem. Though I'm warning you, it may be a bit shorter than the others. Anne Bradstreet. Anne, creative, thoughtful, founding, teaching, writing, poems lifting people's hearts, inspiration. Thank you.
I had forgotten about the cinquain, if I'm saying that right, as a form, but it's kind of like a haiku, but it has a strict form.
Yeah.
It's like the number of, actually, what is it?
It's got one. Is it one word, then
Yeah,
two, then
that's
three?
what it is. 1 word, 2 words, 3 words, 4 words, then 5.
And then 1 word at the end.
And then 1 word at the end. And so it focuses your attention right down, and you end up with something that's really neat. Great job, Charles. I would like to invite up Hazel McCabe. She's in 5th grade at Sargent School.
My name is Hazel, and I wrote a poem called Okay. Hi, my name is Hazel, and I wrote a poem called Academy Road. A cemetery, a yellow house, an American poet. A fire burns as bright as her. The land she walked, the land we walk, the trees she saw, the trees we see. Some things we see are still the same when we walk the land by the yellow house.
Thank you. Well done. And now we have a couple of students who were not able to be here. So I would like to invite Krista Lamb, a member of the Poet Laureate Committee, to read these poems.
Thanks. All right. Can everyone hear me? Yes. All right. This poem is by Lila Billings, 5th grade at Sargent Elementary, and it's called Ode to the Trees. You sweep the sky with green, red, and gold, colors so bright, so vibrant and bold. I walk down the street and a single leaf falls. I stop and listen as the songbird calls. And then another finalist, Tyler McKenzie, 5th grade, Sergeant. And this is Ann Dudley Bradstreet, an acrostic. So that's basically the start of every line is going to spell out Ann Dudley, and I'll emphasize each one as I go. So Ann was the grandmaster of making poetry. No one is like Ann. Never give up. Ann didn't give up when she lost her home and her library. Experience what she touched long ago to this day by reading her poetry. Bradstreet belonged to her. It was her last name. Really talented and open-minded. Ann is a legend to me and in NA in the world. Dudley belonged to her as her last name, her maiden name. She was super at writing poetry, kind to her family and caring about others, trying and always writing, really good at never falling down while facing challenges, eager to succeed and accomplished great things. Earth is our home and hers too. She wrote about it. The first woman poet and one of the best poetry writers ever.
So if I can have the grades 1 and 2 and kindergarten winners come up to the stage. They're the next school category. So I have a couple of adult category poems to read. And the first of these is a finalist. It's by Jessica Wolfenden. And she said she was sorry she was not able to be here today. She's a resident of North Andover. And the title of her poem is A Parsley Wreath, written by Jessica Wolfenden. When we left on the ark, neat as Noah's animals, God's taxonomy was plainly visible. And like Eve, I knew I was somewhere in between Adam and the creeping creatures. But I also remember Prometheus, and don't all poets play God? I've handled the flame after the house quiets, though this is better kept to myself. The wild-eyed man on the pulpit says, we are to be a glowing symbol, emerging holy and triumphant out of this wilderness, though it seems to me that this is already another man's land, yielding only stones for the high-minded. A wall harvest already scars the frost-seared expanse between sea and forest, marking each man's personal colony, his own private allotment of power. I try to mind the minister's entreaties, but November's last red leaf floats beyond his head. Dust motes dance in a soft streak of light, and I think about ink on parchment in a sleeping house. All things within this fading world have end. I repeat to myself, especially when the fading sun sets my son's curls aglow, or when I hear my husband's heart beneath my ear. But doesn't this world fade so beautifully? Look, even now the fruit tree's gnarled branches reach towards the dying light. Soon snow will cover them before melting into delicate pink blossoms, vanishing into fruit sweeter and more substantial than the minister's words. He speaks of salvation, but haven't I already been saved by my earthly muse? What animates me must also color these hills and ripen the pear. Who am I to say such things? In this rough land, I wear homespun cloth and a parsley crown. All's vanity, I try to remind myself, as I look beyond me to eternity. My days disappear like breath upon a glass. And the last adult poem here, this is written by Jim Mealy. He is the Assistant Superintendent of North Andover Public Schools. So it's wonderful to have our teachers and teaching staff represented here today. And so the title of his poem is Sounds. And he says here his inspiration was, we can walk the same land as she did just by walking the old cemetery on Academy Road, or by walking on Court Street, the first street in North Andover. The phrase walk the same land can also mean something more, he says. In addition to walking the same land that she did, through her poetry it's possible to walk with Anne and know her experiences firsthand. Poem, Sounds, written by Jim Mealy. A tree fell in the forest, but did not reach the ground. I listened very closely for the echo of a sound. It lay in the arms of others who refused to let him fall. They buckled from the strain as they tried to keep him tall. They looked to the graying sky and gathered in its rain. It fell from their leaves like tears, voicing their inner pain. Still, they would not let him go. They'd rather bear his weight, as if it somehow would delay his inevitable fate. A tree fell in the forest, but did not reach the ground. I listened very closely and heard a mournful sound. All right, we are ready for our last category. I would like to invite Emily Tempe up to read her poem. She is in grade 2 at Sargent.
Okay, so this poem is kind of short. It's called Dear Woods. Dear Woods, I could almost hear speaking to thee, but the way you speak is not like a person. It's more like a silent meadow. The trees sway with grace, and I love these places around the world.
Congratulations. Great. Marvelous. Now, if I can have Gracie Kosturasan come up here. Gracie is in kindergarten at the Ann Bradstreet Early Childhood Center, and it is so nice to say that name of a school in North Andover again. So, Gracie, it's nice to have you here. Actually, do you want to hold the mic for her? Yeah, right up to your lips.
Anne was the first person to write poems. I love school so much. Do you know why? Because I have my specials at school. Because I sometimes do everything I want to do at computer time. Because I like doing social thinking and wisdom. Because I have snack in recess. Because I like to watch videos when I'm eating snack at school. Because my teachers are so fun. Because I love my friends so much. Because I love free choice. Because I pick Legos, free draw, or directed drawing. I love that Anne was the first Bradstreet Bulldog. The end.
Well done. Right. Super job. Congratulations. Thanks for her. You're welcome. She's going to be a star. It really does take a lot to get up in front of a crowd of people, and it's wonderful to see kids do that, all the youth that are here today. And I'm sure even the adults were a little nervous too, though, you know? You get in front of people, woo! Heart starts beating. I gotta get back to the program here. All right. Well, I want to say a few words of thanks and appreciation to our contest judges, Karen Klein, Jason O'Toole, Krista Lamb, Dan Spear, Ellen McWhorter, Karen Lunny, and Mary Gregoire. Thank you to all of the judges who took time to read and go through all of the poems. And I think they did a wonderful job. And just to let you know, in the judging process, as they go through the poems, they had to keep selecting. They selected a few more poems. We usually try to have a winner and maybe a couple of finalists, depending on how many poems there are. But in a number of the categories, there were so many good poems, great poems, that they brought a few more in this year because they deserve to be heard and they deserve to be noticed. And so I thank them for doing that. All right, well, I'm going to finish with a poem that I wrote almost 10 years ago now. And I wrote this poem at the time, if you remember, in town, where we had a Bradstreet school, and we had a Bradstreet school for more than 100 years. And finally it reached the point where the building was old, it was going to be too expensive to refurbish, or at least so the town said. And finally the town got to the point where it was going to be torn down. And at that point, even before that decision was made, the building sat there unused for a number of years, all closed up. And it was sad for me because my daughter Jillian had gone to kindergarten there. And so I had a wonderful memory of that building, as old as it was. And so once the town finally voted to tear that building down, and it's gone now. Now you have new stores on Main Street, stores that are wonderful to see, but part of the history of North Andover was lost. And the feelings that I had led me to write this poem. And the other thing that I had to do when I wrote this poem, I said, if I'm going to write a poem about Ann Bradstreet, for Ann Bradstreet, oh my, I have to make it rhyme. So I challenged myself on this one, and I hope you like the result. Bradstreet School still stands. The old brick facade gazes silently down, watching the quiet yard of school days past. Empty halls echo, life and lessons are done. Windows stand dark, the welcome door is held fast. For these brick walls, the bell has rung. Here lively feet and playful voices once gathered. Days began with a class on the swings and bars. So keen to learn, a jest, not all so eager, for the schoolmistress bell to sound the start. Take your seat, hands folded, sit straight for teacher. Pens out, books open, the lessons begun. Perhaps the hand of an earlier mistress guided their pens, though her hand held a quill. She walked the same land, a poet's page was her canvas. She reared her own with goodly words instilled. In the verse that she wrote to her child not yet born, was it meant for those who gathered here each morn? Perhaps you saw far to your red brick namesake. Would you nod your assent to what your words began, to lessons learned under your good, gentle name, surely taught, as by your own careful hand, the pupils and teachers you trained, your descendants became. The purpose that guided the build of this frame has carried on to other rooms, other doors. This mistress is left behind her fence, her gate. Decision made, by town citizens okayed. This red brick lady will stand no more. Only some stores, in-town homes, and a plaque, leaving the mind's eye and a gift in the heart. Of those with town colors of scarlet and black, of those in her care who studied and taught, of those with the spirit of sturdy red brick, the good gentle spirit of our mistress poet, with her own at her knee as she taught and penned, has carried on to those who were not yet born, has carried on to those who guide with sure hand, has carried on to those who teach all as their own. When this brick lady is gone, some will yet understand. Bradstreet School is still here. Bradstreet School still stands. And now for just a few closing poems, closing words, I'd like to invite our past poet laureate, and actually the founder of the Poet Laureate in North Andover, Karen M. Klein.
Thank you. I thank everyone for coming today. It was, could you believe this day after this week? What a gift. What a gift. If you have your brochure, look at the furthest one over to the left. It's her Bradstreet stained glass window in St. Botolph's Church in England. England's pretty busy over there today, and she was born 8 years after Queen Elizabeth died, the first Queen Elizabeth, and 4 years before Shakespeare died. So she was 4 when he died. So you get a concept of how long ago that was. And her poetry, I don't believe, had found its audience in America until now. I really believe it's beginning to spring up in so many different places, unusual places. And North Andover was an unusual place for it too until 2005 when we started this. I have a poem to leave you with that sort of gives you the indication of what she wanted. It's to my dear children. This book, by any yet unread, I leave for you when I am dead. That being gone, here you may find what was your living mother's mind. Make use of what I leave in love, and God shall bless you from above. We're doing that today, here. Thank you.
This was really good. Well, thank you all for coming. It was wonderful, and look forward to next year's poetry contest. Great things are coming this way, and also look for those who do Facebook. I have North Andover Poets Corner on Facebook, and so that's one of the ways that I share poetry events going on in this area.
Robert Frost, I forgot.
Oh yeah, actually an announcement. If you would like to hear two great poets, Monday evening, this Monday, at the Lawrence Public Library on the square in Lawrence.
Free.
It's free. It's at 7 p.m.
No, 6:30.
Sorry, 6:30 p.m. Let's get that right. Check the time.
Yep.
And it's Rena Espaillat
Yes.
and
Paulette
Paulette Turco, two excellent poets. This Monday are going to be reading their original poetry in Lawrence. Please come out. We'd like to hear more. So thank you all.